Shame is a shadow that follows us, often unnoticed but deeply felt. It lingers in the corners of our minds, whispering doubts and insecurities, convincing us that we are less than we truly are. It is cunning, isn't it? Shame doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't confront, it lurks. And yet its impact is profound, shaping the way we see ourselves and how we engage with the world. Here's the truth. Shame only holds power in silence. The moment we choose to listen, not to believe, but to truly listen, is the moment we begin to dismantle its hold over us. Shame thrives in secrecy. It feeds on our fear of being exposed, our terror of being seen for who we think we are, flawed, broken, unworthy. But what if we've misunderstood shame all along? What if shame, rather than being our enemy, is a signal, a guide pointing us to the areas of our lives that need healing, growth, and compassion? To listen to shame is to give ourselves the opportunity to understand it. And understanding is where transformation begins. It's easy to confuse vulnerability with weakness. Society often equates strength with stoicism, with an unyielding facade that never cracks. But true strength lies in the courage to be vulnerable, to admit that we feel deeply and sometimes hurt deeply. Brené Brown once said, "Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome." That's what listening to shame requires. It demands that we show up, not just for others, but for ourselves. It calls us to face the parts of us we'd rather ignore, to confront the inner critic that tells us we're not enough. When we listen to shame, we don't give it power. We take its power away, because shame thrives in the dark, in the unspoken, in the hidden. When we bring it into the light, when we name it, speak it, and examine it, we strip it of its ability to control us. There's a saying, what you resist persists. And shame, when resisted, only grows louder. But when faced head on, it begins to shrink. It loses its grip on our identity. Think of the moments in your life when shame has whispered its lies. Perhaps it told you that you were a failure after a mistake, or that you were unlovable after a rejection, or that your worth was tied to your success or lack of it. These whispers are not truths, they are distortions. And yet, how often do we accept them without question? How often do we let these lies shape our self-perception, our choices, our relationships? Listening to shame is not about agreeing with it, it's about questioning it. It's about asking, why do I feel this way? Where does this feeling come from? Is it based on truth or on fear? When we listen to shame with curiosity rather than judgment, we uncover its roots. We see that shame often stems from a fear of disconnection, a fear of being unworthy of love and belonging. And that fear, while deeply human, is not a reflection of reality. Here's the paradox. When we avoid vulnerability to protect ourselves from shame, we end up reinforcing it. We hide parts of ourselves, thinking that by doing so we'll be safe from judgment. But in hiding, we deny ourselves the very connection we crave. Vulnerability, though uncomfortable, is the antidote to shame. It is in opening ourselves up, flaws, fears, and all, that we find true strength. There is a profound freedom that comes with facing shame. When you choose to listen to it, you realize that it is not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of your humanity. To feel shame is to be human. To overcome it is to grow. Viktor Frankl, a man who endured unimaginable suffering, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Shame challenges us in this way. It challenges us to change the way we see ourselves, to redefine our worth, not by the standards of others, but by the truth of who we are. The path to overcoming shame is not easy, but it is necessary. It requires honesty, self-compassion, and courage. It requires us to let go of perfectionism, the belief that we must be flawless to be worthy. It requires us to embrace our imperfections as part of what makes us beautifully human. And most importantly, it requires us to seek connection, not isolation. Empathy is the antidote to shame. When we share our struggles with someone we trust, when we hear the words, "me too," shame begins to lose its power. It's a reminder that we are not alone, that our struggles are part of the shared human experience. The wound is the place where the light enters you, Rumi wrote. And in sharing our wounds, we allow the light of connection and compassion to heal us. Listening to shame is an act of bravery. It's a decision to stop running, to stop hiding, and to face the fears that hold us back. It's a decision to reclaim our narrative, to define ourselves not by our past mistakes, but by our present courage. It's a decision to choose growth over comfort, to step into the discomfort of vulnerability, knowing that it is the path to true strength. So the next time shame whispers in your ear, pause. Don't run from it. Don't fight it. Listen to it. Not to believe its lies, but to understand its message. And then respond with compassion. Remind yourself that you are not your mistakes, your flaws, or your fears. You are a work in progress, beautifully imperfect, and endlessly worthy of love and belonging. The journey of listening to shame is not about reaching a destination of perfection. It's about embracing the process of becoming. It's about choosing to see yourself with the same kindness and empathy that you would offer a dear friend. It's about recognizing that your worth is not something you earn. It is something you inherently possess. In the words of Carl Jung, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Listening to shame is the first step in choosing who you become. It's the first step in reclaiming your power, your voice, and your life. It's the first step in transforming the whispers of doubt into a chorus of resilience and self-belief. You have the strength within you to face shame, to listen to it, and to rise above it. You have the power to turn its lies into lessons, its shadows into light. And in doing so, you not only transform yourself, you inspire others to do the same. Because when one person chooses to listen to shame and overcome it, it creates a ripple effect. It shows others that they too can find the courage to face their fears and embrace their worth. Let shame be the signal, not the sentence. Listen to it, learn from it, and let it guide you to the strength, compassion, and courage that have been within you all along. Shame is a profound force, isn't it? It seeps into the cracks of our minds, filling spaces we didn't even know existed. It whispers to us in moments of quiet, in the stillness of our thoughts, convincing us that we are incapable, unworthy, or broken. It's persistent, isn't it? But what if I told you that this force, this seemingly destructive energy, could be turned into something transformative? What if shame, instead of being the weight that drags you down, could become the foundation upon which you rise? That is the power of perspective, the ability to turn what feels like a barrier into a bridge. Shame is not a reflection of our worth, it's a reflection of our humanity. To feel shame is to be acutely aware of our imperfections, our limitations, and our fears. But here's the truth. Shame is not your identity. It's an experience, a temporary state, not a permanent label. The problem arises when we internalize it, when we allow it to define us rather than inform us. To turn shame into strength, we must first separate the emotion from the self. You are not your shame. You are the person who feels it, who experiences it, and who has the power to rise above it. Think for a moment about the stories you tell yourself. Every one of us has an inner narrative, a script that runs in the background, shaping our actions and beliefs. When shame is the author of that script, the story is one of limitation and fear. But you have the power to rewrite it. You can take the pen from shame's hand and say, "No, I decide how this story unfolds." Viktor Frankl once said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That choice, that freedom, begins with confronting the voice of shame and deciding to speak back with strength and clarity. Shame often feels isolating, doesn't it? It convinces you that you're the only one who has failed, the only one who has stumbled, the only one who carries this burden. But the truth is, shame is universal. It's a shared human experience, though we rarely speak of it. And in that silence, shame grows. It convinces us that we are alone, that no one could possibly understand. But the moment we choose to share our struggles, to speak our shame aloud in a safe and supportive space, its power begins to diminish. Empathy is the antidote to shame. When someone looks at you and says, "I've been there too," shame starts to shrink. Turning shame into strength requires action. It's not enough to acknowledge it. You must confront it. You must look shame in the eye and ask, what are you trying to teach me? What truth lies beneath this discomfort? Often, shame points to areas where we feel inadequate, where we fear judgment, or where we've fallen short of our own expectations. And while those feelings are painful, they are also opportunities for growth. Every moment of shame is a chance to learn, to adapt, and to strengthen the parts of yourself that feel weak. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Resilience is born in the face of shame. It's the ability to get back up after a fall, to stand tall even when you feel small. Resilience is not the absence of pain. It's the ability to endure it, to move through it, and to emerge stronger on the other side. When you face shame head on, when you refuse to let it define you, you cultivate resilience. You prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you thought, that you are stronger than you feared. As Friedrich Nietzsche famously said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Your why, your purpose, your goals, your values becomes the anchor that keeps you steady as you navigate the storm of shame. It's important to surround yourself with the right people. Shame feeds on criticism and judgment, but it withers in the presence of empathy and encouragement. Choose relationships that lift you up, that remind you of your worth, and that hold space for your growth. Be wary of those who use shame as a weapon, who point out your flaws without offering a hand to help. And remember, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Speak to yourself with the kindness and compassion you would offer a dear friend. There's a saying, cure or spear. The same is true for shame. When you take small, courageous steps toward your goals, you begin to prove shame wrong. You show yourself that you are capable, that you are resilient, and that you are worthy. Each step, no matter how small, is a victory over the voice of doubt. Each moment of action is a declaration that you will not be defined by your mistakes or your fears. It's not about erasing shame, it's about rising above it. Think of the stories of great individuals throughout history, leaders, artists, innovators. Many of them faced profound shame and failure, yet it was their ability to confront those feelings, to learn from them, and to persevere that set them apart. Thomas Edison, when asked about his many failed attempts to invent the light bulb, famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 1,0,0,0,0 ways that won't work." That perspective, that refusal to let failure or shame define him, is what led to his ultimate success. You are capable of that same transformation. You have within you the strength to turn shame into a stepping stone, to use it as a catalyst for growth and self-discovery. It won't be easy, growth rarely is, but it will be worth it. Every moment you spend confronting shame, every step you take toward healing and resilience is a step toward becoming the person you were meant to be. And remember, shame is not the enemy, it's a teacher. It shows you where you need to grow, where you need to heal, and where you need to be brave. It's not about avoiding shame, but about facing it with courage and compassion. It's about transforming its whispers into lessons, its weight into strength. So the next time shame tries to take hold, pause, breathe. Remind yourself that you are not alone, that you are not defined by your past, and that you have the power to choose your response. You are stronger than you know, braver than you feel, and more capable than you believe. Turn shame into strength and let it propel you toward the life you deserve.